So Cap sent me this post from, or told me to go over to for Harriet's page because we've been talking about this whole LGBT thing and Michelle Obama and basically the last two videos that I posted. Um, Even though we actually have kind of deviated from that because you know if I don't say it, people won't go and watch it. But that video Hollywoodism, that documentary is brilliant. It's about an hour and a half long, but it's brilliant. And I mean, you want to talk about self hatred? You want to talk about self hatred? You need to go and watch that documentary. I'm telling you. But anyway, getting back to the whole for Harriet thing. Um, yeah. So at the end of the day, it's what we've said it is all along. Smash the patriarchy, destroy, heteronormative, cisgendered, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy, right? And, even watching, that Hollywoodism documentary and the way that the Jewish people were trying to be accepted and how they founded Hollywood and, the ideals and concepts that they put into their movies, which really became, sort of American ideals. One of the parts of the movie, uh, that stuck out to me, aside from the many of the Jewish moguls' self-hatred that they exhibited. Um, but and I'm not gonna say it was all absolute self-hatred. Like when they went off and they built the Hillcrest club, because they weren't allowed into the Gentile clubs. I was like, hell yeah, even I was like throwing up a fist for that, but um, in terms of other angles that they approached it, it was self-hating. But one of the areas that where they got to the World War II and they talked about, how basically America, went to these Jewish Hollywood moguls to try to get them to come out with movies that showed a united, racial front in the movies. In other words, yeah, there may have been racism in the military, but it wasn't in Hollywood. In the military movies that they portrayed, they would always have one Jew, one black guy, one, farmer boy, from somewhere, this sort of, every walk of life, from America, the big ones, and they would put them in a movie, and then they would all be getting along, or racism, or whatever division might exist was squashed because they did not want essentially what Russia has done, in recent elections, with social media. They didn't want that to happen. This idea, this idea of, you're trying to send people to go to war and fight for you and whatnot. You need them to subscribe to patriotism and this idea of fighting fascism. You need them to be on one accord in order for them to be effective. And you don't need, either the Russians or the Germans, basically sowing the seeds of division, among, the American troops among the ranks, even though there was, plenty of documented racism, especially during World War II. But one of the things that well, I'll say this. I'm just bringing up the Hollywoodism because, now I'm over here looking at, for Harriet's post, and then I'm combining it with all the other knowledge that I have about, what a lot of these problems are with the gender roles in the black community and all this other stuff. It's like, look, the cat is out the bag. Pandora's box has been opened. And the way that they look at it is, okay, like just like in this movie or this documentary, the Hollywoodism, the Jews were fighting to try to be accepted into mainstream society. So much so that many of them divorced their own Jewish wives and married Gentiles. I mean, again, talking about self-hatred. You go in there thinking like, well, it's black people, we got the self-hate issue. Oh no. After you done watching that documentary, you will see, this self-hatred, that bleeds even in the Jewish community. And, it's like, damn, like, white supremacy really has done a number in America on everybody, who basically isn't Anglo-Saxon white, I mean, it's just done a number on, just fighting to be accepted, and people having inferiority complexes, or, the whole aspect of, associating your people with poverty or at the bottom and then trying to get away from it. The whole, there's many parallels in this Hollywoodism documentary that I saw, that I see, with African Americans. Um, but the standing theme, that everybody seems to want to battle against, it's not just white supremacy. It's the idea that white supremacy has created in and out groups. And a lot of people, like for Harriet, feel that the best way to challenge that is to create all inclusivity. Everybody's on the same level. It's basically the same thing that the radical right, jumps up when they scream communism or socialism, where everybody's equal, because that's what it's going to come down to. It'll start off with, you know, including transgenders, and then it'll start off with including people who are morbidly obese in the dating game. You see this with the shit that they're doing on Bumble right now. I saw a couple videos, about that Bumble is doing, right? Where, it's basically, men who are on Bumble who say that they don't want, morbidly obese women are being deplatformed or whatever, because they're stating, what they're not interested in, because women are the ones that have to um, uh, initiate the conversation with men. It's not the other way around. It's not like Tinder where you just swipe left and swipe right and then you can message each other if you get a match. Like, the woman has to initiate, the conversation. That way it's not toxic. That way it's not toxic. So she initiates if she wants to initiate, but you man, you sit there and you wait to be chosen, right? That's how the whole thing is set up. But apparently they've had guys that, basically are like, I don't want this, I don't want that, whether it's race, whether it's weight, whether it's whatever phenotype, whatever they don't like. Some men have been stating that on their profile. And so, again, the social justice warriors got triggered, and, now there's this campaign against that, right? And, at the end of the day, like, I look at this, this is going to end up like, I already know many of the counter voices, that, they just want to focus on black women. And as has already been stated numerous times, it's like black women really don't know how to put themselves first. They go out there and they want to war and they want to battle, for everybody else. And in the end, they don't really get anything out of it. You know what I mean? They don't even get the opportunity to we want to talk about black women promotion, you know what I mean? But like, they don't get the opportunity for, the upliftment of the perception of black women, like the same thing that the Jews were trying to do in this Hollywoodism documentary, right? Like, they were trying to uplift the category. But see, the problem is even trying to uplift a category of women, that have historically been put down or whatever, creates an in group and an out group. And the way that people like for Harriet look at that is, well, that's not what we're trying to do. We want everybody to be included. We want everybody to be accepted. And that's just wholly unrealistic. It's wholly unrealistic. But, yet she tries. And, obviously she has an audience for that. But I don't care how much you promote 300-pound women. I'm not going to be interested in 300-pound women. If you want to call me fat phobic, go ahead. But like I said in my last video, like, even going back and listening to Michelle Obama, if you replace the word, like, not even replace the words, if you played this out of context, the conversation that she was having with Zaya, okay? I mean, you could literally use this, just the audio of it, to encourage and promote black boys to date outside their race. literally verbatim, all this, you should experience the new and why do the, oh yeah, well, again, familiarity breeds contempt and black boys are used to black women. So why don't they go out there and date other races of women of this expanded light skin universe and everything else, because that would be a new experience for many of them. Right. And so like it's funny how the type of rhetoric that's used to usher in all this diversity and inclusion can very easily be used in the opposite direction against the very people that are trying to social justice warrior shame everybody else. It can be easily used against them in the opposite direction. Well, you're old news, this is new news, I'm gonna go out here and get with Becky. But at the end of the day, it's real simple to understand, right? White supremacy is a problem. It creates an in-group and an out-group. Patriarchy is a part of white supremacy, right? Which creates not only an in-group and an out-group and class designations and whatnot, but it also, or you could argue and say the class designation comes from capitalism, but that it creates a hierarchy within the genders, right? Not an exchange, not a I agree to do this and you agree to do that, and we'll work this out. Like no, it's women have this delusion when it comes to men that men get to do whatever they want, and what men have been countering is like, no, y'all want literally the privileges of women, the power of men and the responsibilities of neither group. And men are just saying we're not going to participate. That's all it comes down to is not participating. This idea that you're going to be able to shame and force people into doing what they don't want to do. You don't want to date a trans woman, you're transphobic. Like, the fuck out of here. Right? Just completely ignoring the choice of the other person and what they want. Right? So if you got a person that's trans, nobody's jumping up saying you're heterophobic. Like, nobody says that. And then not to mention, notice like the whole conversation about this whole trans, it's always trans women. It's never trans men. Like, where are the women getting ready to date trans men? It's always if you don't want to date trans women, then you're again, trying to get straight men to date men masquerading as women. It's never about trying to get straight women to date women masquerading as men. It's always unidirectional, and it's like I get it, but it's a fantasy. Like what for Harriet's rhetoric and that whole camp is trying to do, it's fantasy. This idea that you're not going, like, I don't know, you would call it human nature or whatever. That there's going to be in groups and out groups. We've all seen it. We've seen it in elementary school. We've seen it in high school. We've seen it in fraternity life at university. We've seen it all in groups and out groups. And by default, there's always going to be in groups and out groups. And the most basic in group and out group is going to be those who do and those who don't, those who provide and those who don't. This is the whole reason why, men who go off to war are buried in separate cemeteries. They're buried in military separate cemeteries. They get the honors. And truthfully told, it's a testament to the living. It's not a testament to the dead, because obviously they're dead. They can't really appreciate it. But again, if they just took soldiers and just bulldozed their bodies into a mass grave and some unmarked grave, who would sign up to go and fight for their country? Without being recognized in some way as somebody who made the ultimate sacrifice. And so in a world where you're going to have people who do and then people who don't do for whatever reason or don't want to do, you're going to have stratification right there. You're going to have a system where, those who do are going to get privileges. It reminds me of that movie Starship Troopers, where they had an egalitarian society. But in Starship Troopers, in order to become a citizen, you had to join the military. and then go fight the arachnoids on Klendathu or whatever the damn planet was. Go watch, Starship Troopers. I mean, it was the first real mainstream, egalitarian, movie. I mean, where they had the football team with the girls and the boys, and yeah, they kind of gave the women like, almost like super abilities and whatnot, because again, we see that women are not as strong as men. You know what I mean? But they tried in that movie. That's the point that I'm making. They tried. And essentially, everybody was equal, but there was still stratification where if you went and you served, you became a citizen. And then, the main characters' parents, they got, killed in Rio. I think they were living in Rio de Janeiro. So like it was kind of like a world, a world, one nation type of situation, which honestly, I believe eventually Earth will get to that point, but, very, very far in the future. When you start talking about, colonizing different planets and stuff like that. If, again, that's not going to happen in my lifetime, but, then there'll be wars and it'll be like America with Britain and shit, the outer colonies versus the inner colonies, the inner solar system planets versus the outer solar system planets, or it'll be the whatever, this solar system versus, what's the closest solar system, Alpha Centauri system or something like that. If we get, FTL travel, that will always exist because there's always going to be some level of competition. The competition is going to be based on I have more than you. And, again, like that's how women choose. I mean, you can't simultaneously have a conversation about, men need to provide and men need to have this and have that for a family and this, that, and the third, and not have some level of reproductive competition that men are going to have to deal with in order to get the women that they want and the women that they desire. And you have women sitting around waiting to be chosen, based on, which man, has, whatever resources and whatnot. A guy who's a bus driver and an NBA player are not on the same level. They're never going to be on the same level. The access to women that they have is never going to be the same. And good luck trying to convince women that, this bus driver is just on par with this NBA player. Good luck trying to convince women of that. Because that it's not going to change the reality. So like the stuff that for Harriet talks, in my opinion, is delusion. And there's so many people that they just want to constantly war. And personally, I think it's almost just a business now. I mean, people are funding their lifestyle. Again, people want to talk about, why I haven't created a Patreon or why I haven't taken, a single cent. I mean, because, again, it takes away from the I don't know what word I want to use, the genuineness. You know what I'm saying? The genuineness. I don't know what word I want to use, but it takes away from the fact that you have people that are just like, you don't have to win. All you got to do is just be an advocate, right? You just tell people what they want to hear, even if it's baseless and it's totally disconnected from reality. And people will pay you to hear this type of stuff. It's like what I say about Dennis and Kevin Samuels with the 51-year-olds dating 25-year-olds. I'm like, y'all delusional with that one. Yeah, I feel you on all the other talking points that y'all may make about, men and how they should be moving and stuff like that. Even though they're not the first ones to say it, but they got bigger platforms, right, than I do. So I'm not knocking that. But, sometimes, they kind of bring their own personal, selves into the conversation. And then now all of a sudden, it's 50 is the new 20. Like, you're delusional. That's delusional. OK. And so, people just don't like, to me, overall, it's like this lack of maturity. Right. It's like people don't want to admit that, like, OK, you had your time on the dance floor. Now it's time to get off. Pass the torch, pass the knowledge, let the younger generations, be better. But like, nah, like we don't do that. And the thing is like with all this stuff going on now, and black people talking about black empowerment and man, I look at it like we're just done. Like it's already over. It's already a wrap. which in my opinion is only going to lead to more people trying to, swirl out and date out and get away from, the community because, they hate the culture. They hate the culture. They hate the orientation. They hate the way that the black community function because it doesn't function as a cohesive unit. It's one thing I can say about the Jewish people in the Hollywoodism documentary. You know what I'm saying? Like they were working together, even within the confines of their own self-hatred. You know what I mean? They still worked together. They still hired their own. They still took it. But like in terms of just the way that you know, for Harriet, wants to operate, I mean, it doesn't even make sense. She got the video up. I see the nice apartment that she's living in, which looks better than the one that she had previously. I'm like, that's capitalism. The money that you're making off of YouTube is capitalism. I mean, and for Harriet's world, it's like arguing like that the person that's not making videos should be making as much money as for Harriet for the content that she's creating. Right? It's not fair for Harriet. Why do you get content? And we must tear down capitalism. Capitalism shouldn't exist. I should be getting free money from the government the same way that you're getting money from YouTube for the actual content that you spend hours creating and editing. You know what I mean? Like literally these concepts, they spill into multiple areas to the point where nobody wants these people around them. Okay, because they're just nuts and they're bringing in all type of undesirable, stuff into the room. There's levels to the shit. That's just what it is. You know what I mean? Where are all my single ladies getting ready to date guys that are, 5'7" and below? Because I think 5'7" is the cutoff where women are just highly discriminatory. 5'7", 5'8", somewhere in there. It's like the absolute cutoff. Like they just, they write them off. You know what I mean? So like what's irritating to men is, women, they bitch and moan about how selective men are in the sexual market, but women are equally as selective. They're equally as selective. If you're not tall, you write him off. If he's not swagnificent, you write him off. If he don't have no money, you write him off. I don't, like the way that women try to play, like they're just victims to the evil patriarchy because, they don't fit in and whatever. Like nobody out here is truly perfect. You know what I mean? Like you get people. It's one of the reasons why I have a great thirst, respect, and adoration for women who work out. You know what I mean? I've seen women that they don't even have the absolute, perfect, genetic curves. Like you'll have a woman that has genetic curves and, if she worked out, it would be just phenomenal. You know what I'm saying? But she doesn't work out. And then I got a girl that's got average curves, but she's reaching her maximum genetic potential by working out in the gym. A perfect example of somebody who reached their maximum genetic potential is Kathy Freeman Drayton. And if you go and you look at before pictures versus after pictures of Kathy Freeman Drayton, all that thickness that she got is not ascribed to, well, that's her black genes popping out and melanin and all. No. First off, she's racially ambiguous as all get out. You know what I mean? She got a bigger ass than some of the darkest, most African sisters that you could come up with. Okay. But she worked out, her and her husband, her now husband, worked out. And she had a video where, it was like, she couldn't even do, I think it was like 90 pounds. She was squatting and then she got up to like, 140 pounds. And then she got up to like, 265 pounds. And then she got up to like 300 pounds and she's squatting. You know what I mean? Like that's the work that she put in. That's one of the things that I value and I respect about people who go to the gym and work out, because you can't take that away from them. You know what I mean? If you see a guy with big arms, he has big arms for a reason. He put the work in. That's his own body. You know what I'm saying? If you see somebody with a physique that you find sexually attractive, which is always going to be, essentially way above average, muscular build. Men with muscles have to work on building their muscles, right? And the reward for them is the fact that women find them sexually attractive. The conversation that for Harriet tries to have is like the skinny dude and the guy with muscles are on par with each other and they should be treated as such. That's delusional. It's straight up delusion. And then when you bring in all this other nonsense, all this goofy shit, if you don't want to date transgender women, if you don't include transgender women in womanhood, then your womanhood is fragile as fuck. Literally, verbatim. You can read it. I'm like, this is it just gets to insane levels. It gets to insane levels. And it's like, I'll never understand. It's like, Martin Luther King said it, we integrated or desegregated socially, but not economically. You know what I mean? Money, just like the Hollywood, Jewish moguls, money should be black people's God until we get out of poverty. And then we can sort out a lot of the other stuff, right? When we lift black people up out of poverty, which I know some people argue, well, you can't build a nation within a nation. Anyway, and honestly, the Jewish community really shouldn't be compared to the black community because all these guys did, if you'll see in the documentary, is they just changed their last names. I mean, I didn't even know Kirk Douglas wasn't Kirk Douglas. His real name is something like Danielvich. I'm like, what? I mean, just totally blown away. So you want to talk about the passing as a Gentile when they were actually Jewish. You know what I'm saying? Clearly, that's not a feat that black people could accomplish. And Martin Luther King pointed that out in one of his last interviews before he was assassinated. He was like, well, yeah, they can do it when, he's because the guy, I don't know if it was Walter Cronkite or somebody, but they were interviewing him and, asking him, what about the other immigrant groups and everything? He's like, yeah, well, when it comes to like Jewish people, all they got to do is change their name, which many of them did. I mean, like I'm telling you, when you watch Hollywoodism, the whole time you're watching, just think in the back of your mind, just keep this in the back of your mind, the phrase self-hatred. Because it's all throughout that documentary. I'm not saying that they didn't do anything positive, but I mean, just some of it, I look at it, I'm like, I don't even know if it was cowardice or if it was just being smart. Like when they came back from Europe and they saw the atrocities of Europe, they didn't make any films about it. They didn't bring it what had happened to anybody's attention. And you didn't start seeing movies like that until like what? Schindler's List? I mean that really showed what had transpired. But no, I mean all this stuff, all this talk that you hear, smash the patriarchy, acceptance, everybody should be gay, LGBT, this and that. And it all of it is an attempt to try to create this classless, genderless, society where everybody's on the same level. And honestly, I believe that human nature simply doesn't allow that. What I mean? When you have a world where, I mean, it's like they've already done studies like people who are prettier or handsomer or more attractive are treated completely differently than people who aren't. That type of thing is hardwired, going down to the, this whole individual aspect of genetic survival. The reason why people aren't attracted to, people that they deem unattractive and, the portions of their, the cranial facial structure. There's a reason why you're able to quickly identify, somebody who has Down syndrome or somebody who has Fragile X syndrome or somebody who has, I don't know what, Klinefelters, right? You're able to identify these things. Can you identify Klinefelters? I'm pretty sure you can. Or am I confusing that one with Fragile X? I gotta think about that one. You know what I mean? But any sort of, any sort of, genetic defect, is, the face in terms of forming the face genetically and all that, and your Hox genes and all that, like you can, if somebody is disproportionate, right? You got your Hox gene, you got your Sonic the Hedgehog gene, right? These genes have to do with like a person's symmetry. And you're when you're looking at somebody and you're determining whether they're attractive or not, ignoring all the aspects of, you know, white medias, white supremacy and all that stuff. I'm saying, and when you're looking at somebody, clear skin, symmetrical face, straight teeth and all that, you're measuring their genetic fitness. Oh, they have good genes. Oh, they weren't in the oven too long or too short. Oh, they're tall. That means, they're getting the nutrition that they want. Oh, I want to procreate with that person. That is what it is when it comes to people running around scrambling to try to get the most attractive person that they can get. That right there, is going to create division. If anything, arguably, capitalism allows for the people that would essentially be excluded to move up the ranks. The only thing is they got to work together. They got to work in concert with one another. To get in where they fit in. Not always. I'm not saying that as an absolute, but I'm saying when you look at how some of the immigrant groups have come to America and they were nobody, and then they were able to, do certain things, it's like, damn, black people did that, but what happened? We were burnt out. Right. So we got to come up with a different angle, a different plan, perhaps embracing the Second Amendment like we should have all along. I mean, at the end of the day, hard work is hard work. I mean, I know that sounds very conservative of me, but I mean, that's what it comes down to. And the idea that I'm telling you, the idea that you're going to be able to eliminate that from the human psyche, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Those who put in the work are going to, demand that they be recognized and rewarded. And even other people who put in the work, they're not going to, tolerate other people who weren't in the trenches with them dictating anything. They're not going to tolerate it. And, if you push too hard, all you're going to get is war, conflict, and violence. That's what you're going to get, from those people, and yeah, do you end up with a situation where it can be unfairly, swung in a particular direction where, it's like Call of Duty with the kill streaks where the richer get richer, and it's like, you go in and you get the radar, and the next thing you know, you get the freaking drone, and the next thing, or the radar is the drone. Then you get the helicopter, then you get the airstrike, then you go all the way up to getting the nuclear bomb and stuff like that. It's like, damn, it's like, it just makes it easier to get kills. That was the whole thing that people were complaining about in the first Call of Duty. The rich get richer. That was a concept. You can go on YouTube and you can look that up. The Call of Duty, the rich get richer. But so you can have, the people that, generationally, once they get to the top, they can conspire to keep the masses, at bay. I'm not saying that we don't have a system that is in severe need of, reform. But when, for Harriet comes through with this sort of one size fits all, like we're gonna dismantle this system and replace it with what? Replace it with what? What program from the Matrix are you going to use to get everybody to accept it? Because there's going to be plenty of people who aren't going to accept it. And again, you push too hard, and what eventually happens is people respond with violence. And, that's not something that I think any of the camp of the, the for Harriet, side or angle of things, is prepared for. I don't think any of them are prepared for that. Somehow they magically think like, oh, the police and the military is going to look out for our interest. I mean, it's as delusional of a Democrat ideology as possible. You had all them people storming the Capitol, right? A lot of them were law enforcement themselves. A lot of the law enforcement of the Capitol were taking pictures with the rioters. And then you have, a white supremacist who've infiltrated the police departments. You have white supremacists who's infiltrated the military, right? Or people with these, ideologies. But yet somehow, again, 1 minute it's Black Lives Matter. We got a protest march in the street. And then the next minute you're calling on the same, police officers to enforce, your social justice warrior campaign. I'm like, the disconnect and the delusion that I see there, you know, I mean, the bottom line, all revolutions are bloody. Not to mention the fact that, if you're going to have something like, you're going to have to fight that shit yourself. And it's not just going to be a fight with words. I mean, in other words, if you want to control some shit like that and you want to be able to define it and create a new world order, you either got to have the muscle, which goes back to violence, or you got to have the capital, which I don't even know how for Harriet and her ideology and her camp would even obtain when she's running around anti-capitalist. Even though she's like, I'm good and I'm comfortable, accepting all this money to live the comfortable lifestyle that I'm living, that very rhetoric would undermine many of the people within that belief system, to where they wouldn't even have the capital to implement and influence things like policy and whatnot. What do you think lobbyists do? But they're using, whatever they believe, their tactic of shame and going out there and yelling at everybody and whatnot. And some would say, oh, well, it's been effective so far. Personally, I believe that there's other powers that are behind a lot of this shit, because when you look at the type of money that's being thrown around, so I look at that when I look at gun control. It's like the whole aspect of gun control is funded by one person, and that's Michael Bloomberg. I mean, you got Moms Demand Action, that's Bloomberg. Every Town for Gun Safety, that's Bloomberg. March for Our Lives, that's Bloomberg, right? What's the other one? I think those are the three big ones. He's got three organizations, one guy, right? And it's like, why would he be throwing? Why is that so important to him? Why is that so important to him? Especially as, a Jewish man himself, I'm like, after what had happened, you would think that, like African Americans, Jewish people would be some of the strongest Second Amendment advocates that exist. And, many of them are not. We got a rabbi in New Jersey that, he's very much about the Second Amendment. I don't know if his videos are still up on YouTube, but he used to have videos up on YouTube, and he used to discuss that. He's like, this don't make no sense. Why we would be anti-Second Amendment. But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. I'm just saying that's big bucks being put, into, trying to ram down some damn gun control to disarm the population. I'm like, okay, so what's next after you do that? While you got people like for Harriet running around, screaming, social warrior injustices and all this other stuff. I'm like, okay, so if injustice still exists in the world like that, why would anyone think that it's okay to then disarm or be disarmed or disarm yourself? You know what I'm saying? Like, people, they're not thinking this stuff all the way out. And part of the issue, like I said, with a lot of people who make money off of the platform, is once you're making money off of the platform and you become an advocate, you got to keep that going. Like, if you came on and that's your thing, like, you got to keep that going, because that's what you generated your audience on. So no matter what new information comes into the room, they're not going to change. Like, for me, somebody was telling me this the other day. I was talking to them, and they were just like, I've seen your growth, from when you first came online. You know what I mean? You got more information over the years, and then you took that information and then you adjusted, you adapted to the new information that you discovered in all these various conversations. But you get a lot of other people, if their platform is bashing black women, like, that's what their platform is. And they're not going to deviate. They're not going to change no matter what information. That's what their platform is. If their platform is colorism, it's just, colorism is what it is. That's what they're going to push. If their platform is social justice warriors, that's what they're going to push. If their platform is high value men and, and women wanting high value, then that's what they're going to push. And that's what it is. And it's not going to change from that formula. They're not automatically going to start trying to do the Marcus Brownlee thing and start talking about, oh, I bought this new Samsung television the other day. Let me tell you about it. They're not going to do that. Although some people did go from cologne to talking about, the gender dynamic. But I'm just saying, these type of triggering topics, I like to call them. You know what I mean? Like I've seen the comments. I've seen people, you go over there and the person's like, well, I have some new information, and they say something different. And then, all of a sudden they're like, so unsubscribed. People just, I liked you, but now I'm unsubscribing. You got all these emotional audience. I peeped Yanni with that. You know who Yanni is. She had a video. I was listening to it, and she was up there talking about, I've never been pregnant, to distinguish herself from the rest of. I've never been pregnant. But, oh, by the way, I'm not better than any of you single mothers out here. I just have to state that I've never been pregnant. I'm like, why are you stating that? Why are you making the distinction? If it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. If y'all on par with each other, then it doesn't matter. But yet she comes in with the sneak attack, the sneak, the sneak track, letting everybody know that she's never been pregnant. Why is it so important to say that if you're no better than a single mother? Why do you feel the need to say that? It's like me pulling up, my car has 500 horsepower, but I'm not faster than any of you. Like, what? So you just got all that horsepower just for the sake of it, and then had to let us know that you have all that horsepower, even though, right, you're saying that your car's not better than or faster than ours, even though it is, right? Clearly it is. See, at the end of the day, to me, this just comes down to people who just want to live in total delusion. And unfortunately, we live in a free society and people want to live in delusion, and, you can't police people's thoughts. So, they live in delusion. Is that going to be advantageous to us or to them? I would say no. But what can you do? At the end of the day, if you're not getting chosen, then you're simply not getting chosen. That's all there is to it. But I got to go. I got people calling me. So I'm going to end this video here. But yeah, it to me, it's just delusion. Anyway, that's my video. SWP out.